What if I told you that somewhere on the internet, there exists a puzzle so complex, so deeply encrypted, that some of the world's most brilliant minds have spent years trying to solve it and failed? What if I told you that the FBI, the same agency that hunts serial killers, dismantles drug cartels, and cracks the hardest cybercrime cases on the planet, looked at this puzzle and quietly walked away? This isn't science fiction. This isn't a movie plot. This is real. And it starts, like so many terrifying things do, with something that seems completely harmless. A picture, posted online. In 2012. Welcome to StoryLabs. Settle in, because tonight, we are going down a rabbit hole that has no confirmed bottom. The year is 2012. The internet is still young enough to feel exciting, but old enough to have developed its dark corners. Reddit is booming. Forums are buzzing. Hackers and coders are building communities in the shadows of the web. And then, on January 5th, 2012, a user on the forum 4chan posts something strange. It's an image, black and white, grainy, and at first glance, it looks almost meaningless. Just a series of dots and patterns arranged in a grid. No explanation. No username that anyone recognizes. No context whatsoever. Just the image. And a single line of text beneath it. Hello. We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. That's it. No signature. No website. No email address. Just a challenge, dropped into the internet like a stone into still water. And almost immediately, the ripples began. People ignored it at first. 4chan gets thousands of posts every hour. Most of them are noise. Most of them are jokes. But something about this one felt different. A few curious users started examining the image more closely. And that's when they noticed the first clue. Hidden inside the image itself, embedded in the raw data of the file, was text. Not visible to the naked eye. Hidden using a technique called steganography. The art of concealing information inside something that appears completely normal. The hidden text was a book cipher. A code that references specific words in a specific book to construct a hidden message. The user scrambled. Which book? There were thousands of possibilities. But after hours of frantic cross-referencing, someone cracked it. The book was The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And the decoded message gave them a web address. A dark, cryptic URL that, when typed into a browser, led to a website that almost no one had ever seen before. And what they found there would change everything. The website was sparse, almost brutally minimal. A black background, white text, and a series of increasingly complex puzzles. Mathematical, philosophical, cryptographic, each one harder than the last. At the top of the page, a name had emerged. Cicada 3301. Nobody knew what it meant. Nobody knew who was behind it. But the puzzles were extraordinary. We're talking about challenges that combined expertise in number theory, ancient philosophy, medieval literature, cybersecurity, and music theory, all at once. This wasn't some bored teenager trolling the internet. This was something organized, something deliberate, something funded. The question burning in everyone's minds was the same. Who built something like this? And why? Within days, the post had gone viral across every major internet forum. Hackers from around the world started collaborating in real time, pooling their skills, sharing solutions, and racing toward whatever lay at the end of this digital labyrinth. And here's where it gets truly extraordinary. The puzzle didn't stay online. Suddenly, GPS coordinates began appearing in the solutions. Real-world coordinates, pointing to physical locations across the globe. In the United States, in Poland, in Australia, in South Korea, in France. People actually went to these locations. And what they found there, taped to lampposts hidden under park benches, tucked inside phone booths, were QR codes. Physical clues, left in the real world, by someone who knew people would come looking. This wasn't just a hacker puzzle anymore. This was an operation, a global, coordinated, multi-layered operation, run by people who could anticipate the movements of thousands of people across dozens of countries simultaneously. Let that sink in for a moment. Intelligence agencies took notice. Former NSA analysts started commenting in forums, saying the level of cryptographic sophistication in the puzzles was genuinely world-class. Not textbook knowledge, operational knowledge. The kind of knowledge that only comes from years of working inside the world's most secretive intelligence organizations. The FBI opened an informal inquiry. They started monitoring the forums. They traced the web servers. They analyzed the metadata of the posted images down to the pixel level. And every single time they hit a wall, the servers were perfectly anonymized. The images were scrubbed of all identifiable metadata. The DNS registrations were buried under layers of proxy services that traced back to nowhere. The physical clues were placed with gloves, leaving no fingerprints, no DNA, no surveillance camera footage that showed anything useful. Whoever was running Cicada 3301, they knew exactly how to hide from the people who find people for a living. But here's the cliffhanger that kept the entire internet awake at night. Months after the first puzzle launched, after thousands of people had poured thousands of hours into solving it, a small group of solvers actually made it to the very end. They solved every puzzle, every cipher, every GPS coordinate, every layer of steganography. They reached the final door, and then they were contacted, privately, through encrypted email channels that appeared and disappeared within hours. They were given instructions. They were told they had passed the test. And then, they were told to never speak about what comes next. Some of them kept that promise. A few didn't. And what they described is where this story takes a turn that even the FBI wasn't prepared for. Stay with us. Act 2 is coming. And the deeper this rabbit hole goes, the darker it gets. Before we go further, take a breath. Because everything you heard in Act 1, the hidden images, the GPS coordinates, the global puzzle, the FBI quietly backing away, that was just the surface. What lies beneath is something that researchers, cryptographers, and former intelligence insiders have spent years trying to piece together. And the picture they've assembled is deeply unsettling. Let's go back to those solvers. The ones who made it to the end. The ones who were told to stay silent. Most of them did. And their silence, in many ways, spoke louder than any answer ever could. But a handful of people scattered across different countries who had never met each other, who solved the puzzle independently. They started quietly comparing notes. Not publicly, not on Reddit, through encrypted messaging apps, through private forums hidden behind password walls, through channels that took months just to locate. And what they all described was eerily, almost impossibly consistent. The final stages of the Cicada 3301 puzzle, they said, weren't about cryptography anymore. They were about ideology. The last set of challenges asked solvers to engage with deeply philosophical texts. Works about individual freedom, about the dangers of mass surveillance, about the ethics of information, who controls it, who deserves access to it, and what happens to a civilization when that control is weaponized. One recurring text kept appearing across the final puzzles. A book called Liber Primus, which is Latin for the first book. And Liber Primus was unlike anything anyone had encountered before. It was written entirely in runes. Ancient runic script, combined with a custom cipher system layered on top of it, making it one of the most complex encoded documents ever discovered outside of a classified government facility. Researchers estimated that fully decoding Liber Primus could take years, maybe decades. Some of it has been translated. Fragments, passages. What those passages say has fueled every major theory about who Cicada 3301 really is. The decoded fragments speak of the importance of protecting privacy, of resisting control, of the sacred nature of knowledge freely shared, of building systems that governments cannot infiltrate, cannot corrupt, and cannot shut down. This wasn't the manifesto of a curious puzzle maker. This was the philosophical foundation of an organization. And that realization cracked the entire mystery wide open into three very different directions. Three theories that, even today, divide the researchers who have dedicated years of their lives to this case. Theory number 1. Cicada 3301 is a recruitment tool for a Western intelligence agency, specifically the CIA or GCHQ. Think about it. The level of resources required to plant physical clues across 6 continents simultaneously. The sophistication of the cryptography. The ability to remain completely anonymous despite the resources of the FBI being turned against you. The ideological framing designed to appeal to a very specific type of person. Anti-authoritarian, technically brilliant, fiercely independent. This theory says that Cicada 3301 was designed to find exactly the kind of people that traditional intelligence recruitment could never reach. The hackers, the anarchists, the geniuses who would never respond to a LinkedIn message from Langley. Former CIA officer Robert Steele, before his death, publicly stated that the puzzle bore structural similarities to intelligence community recruitment exercises he had witnessed firsthand. He stopped short of naming the agency, but he didn't deny the connection either. Theory number 2 is darker, and it starts with a man named Thomas Schoenberger. In 2017, Schoenberger, a musician, composer, and self-described intelligence asset, publicly claimed to have been involved in creating Cicada 3301, not as a member of an intelligence agency, but as part of a private group, a loosely organized collective of former intelligence operatives, hackers, and ideologues who had grown disillusioned with institutional power. His claim ignited a firestorm. Some people believed him, many didn't. But what made his story impossible to completely dismiss was the detail. Specific, verifiable, technically accurate detail about the puzzle's construction that had never been made public. Details that only someone inside the operation could have known. He described Cicada 3301 not as a recruitment tool for any existing government, but as the foundation for something entirely new. A shadow network, built from the ground up by people who believed that traditional governments were collapsing under the weight of their own corruption, and that a new kind of distributed, encrypted, leaderless organization needed to exist to preserve freedom in the digital age. He called it, in private communications that were later leaked, the architecture of what comes after. Whatever that means, it sent chills through every researcher who read it. But here is where the FBI's involvement becomes deeply personal and deeply strange. In 2014, Cicada 3301 released its annual puzzle, because by this point, it had become an annual event appearing like clockwork every January. Except this year, something was different. Hidden inside the puzzle, in a layer of steganography that took weeks to uncover, was a warning. Not a clue, not a cipher, a warning. It read, "Beware of false gods. There are those who seek to co-opt this. They are not us." The internet exploded. What did it mean? Had someone been impersonating Cicada 3301? Had the organization been infiltrated? Or was this a message to solvers about something else entirely? Something happening in the real world outside the puzzle? The FBI took that message very seriously. Because around the same time, something happened that had nothing to do with puzzles. A whistleblower. A real one. A low-level NSA contractor, whose name has never been officially confirmed, referred to in leaked documents only by the codename Pilgrim, reached out to an independent journalist in Berlin. Through a series of encrypted communications that the journalist later described as the most sophisticated tradecraft I have ever encountered from a non-state actor. Pilgrim claimed to have evidence that a faction within the NSA had identified Cicada 3301 not as a foreign intelligence operation, not as a recruitment tool, but as a genuine existential threat. Because, Pilgrim claimed, Cicada 3301 had successfully recruited people. Real people. People with real security clearances. People working inside the United States government, inside European intelligence agencies, inside major technology corporations. And those recruits, Pilgrim said, have been quietly building something. For years. Something designed to be released at a specific moment. Something that could not be stopped once it began. Pilgrim called it the inheritance. And then, Pilgrim disappeared. The journalist in Berlin spent 8 months trying to verify the claims. She found fragments of corroborating evidence, anomalies in NSA, internal communications, unusual personnel transfers, a quietly dissolved task force that had been formed specifically to investigate what internal documents referred to only as the recursive problem. She never published the full story. In an interview she gave to a small independent outlet in 2019, she said simply, "There are stories you don't publish because you can't verify them. And there are stories you don't publish because you can verify them." She refused to say which category this fell into. She has not spoken publicly about Cicada 3301 since. Now here is the moment that changes the entire shape of this story. January. The annual Cicada 3301 puzzle appears, right on schedule. Cryptographers, veterans of previous years, excitedly dive in. But something is wrong. The puzzle is different. The signature, a digital PGP signature used to verify that each cicada release was authentic, generated from a private cryptographic key that only the original creators possessed, is missing. The community is confused. Could this be a fake? An imitation? Someone exploiting the cicada brand for attention? And then, a few weeks later, a message appears, signed with the authentic PGP key, the real key, the one only the original creators had access to. The message is short. It says, "We have gone dark. The work continues elsewhere. Do not look for us here." And then, nothing. Cicada 3301 went silent. No puzzle in 2017. No puzzle in 2018. No puzzle in any year since. The most sophisticated, most mysterious, most perfectly anonymous organization in internet history simply stopped. Or at least, stopped being visible. Because here is what the researchers who have spent years on this case all agree on. Even the ones who agree on almost nothing else. An organization capable of what Cicada 3301 demonstrated does not simply stop existing. Organizations like that go underground. They remove themselves from view. They shed the parts of themselves that have become too visible, too analyzed, too exposed. They become something else. And the question that haunts this case, the question that the FBI has never answered publicly, the question that the journalists in Berlin refuse to answer at all, is this. What did they become? What is the inheritance asterisk? Asterisk. And has it already been released? The answers, or at least the closest thing to answers that anyone has ever found, are waiting in Act 3. But I have to warn you, some mysteries exist because nobody has solved them yet. And some mysteries exist because the people who solved them decided the rest of us weren't ready to know. Which kind of mystery is Cicada 3301? Stay with us. We need to talk about what we actually know. Not theory, not speculation, not the whispers of anonymous forum users and unnamed whistleblowers. What we actually, verifiably, concretely know, because in a story this deep, this layered, this deliberately obscured, the facts themselves are the most terrifying thing of all. Here is fact number 1. Cicada 3301 is real. It is not a hoax. It is not an ARG, an alternate reality game created for entertainment. The FBI's cyber division formally acknowledged its existence in internal communications that were partially declassified under Freedom of Information requests in 2018. Those documents describe Cicada 3301 using a phrase that should stop you cold. They called it an unattributed, sophisticated, persistent entity. In intelligence language, that phrase has a very specific meaning. It means we know it exists. We know it is powerful. We do not know who controls it, and we have been unable to find out. That is not a phrase the FBI uses lightly. That is the same classification language used for nation-state cyber threats, for the most dangerous hacking collectives on Earth. They used it for a puzzle posted on 4chan. Fact number 2. Liber Primus, the ancient runic text at the heart of the final Cicada puzzles, remains, as of today, only partially decoded. Despite over a decade of effort from some of the most brilliant cryptographers alive, including academics from MIT, Cambridge, and ETH Zurich, roughly 70% of the book is still locked. 70%. And the 30% that has been translated contains passages that grow stranger and more specific the deeper you go. Early sections read like philosophy, like a manifesto for digital freedom. Beautiful, abstract, inspiring. But the later decoded sections shift. They become instructional, precise. They describe, in careful detail, how to build systems of communication that are immune to surveillance. How to organize groups of people in ways that leave no traceable hierarchy. How to transfer information, resources, and coordination across borders without triggering any existing detection system. This is not philosophy anymore. This is an operational manual, written in runes, hidden inside a global puzzle, distributed to people specifically selected for their ability to find it. Let that architecture sink in for a moment. Fact number 3, and this is the one that changes everything. In 2020, a cybersecurity researcher named Marcus Wanners, working independently out of Copenhagen, published a paper that went almost completely unnoticed outside of specialist circles. The paper was dense, technical, written for an academic audience. But buried inside, it was a discovery that, when translated into plain language, reads like the closing chapter of a thriller novel. Wanners have been analyzing the cryptographic signatures used across all verified Cicada 3301 communications. Every puzzle release, every authenticated message, every PGP signed document going back to 2012. He was looking for patterns in the key generation. Mathematical fingerprints that might reveal something about the software, the hardware, or the environment used to create them. And he found something. A statistical anomaly. Tiny, almost invisible, but consistent across every single verified Cicada communication ever released. The anomaly matched a specific cryptographic library, a piece of software, and that software had only ever been used in two known contexts. One was academic, a university research project that had been publicly documented. The other was a signals intelligence program operated jointly by the NSA and its British counterpart, GCHQ, between 2008 and 2014. A classified program, officially discontinued, officially never publicly acknowledged. Wanners submitted his paper to 3 major cybersecurity journals before it was published. 2 of them rejected it without explanation after initially expressing strong interest. The third published it in a low-circulation academic journal where it received almost no attention. 6 weeks in 2014, when Cicada posted the warning, "Beware of false gods." There are those who seek to co-opt this. They are not us. The community at the time assumed it was about imitators. About people faking Cicada content for attention or profit. But what if it wasn't? What if that message was directed outward? Not at puzzle solvers. Not at imitators. But at the intelligence agencies that had been circling the operation for 2 years? What if it was a signal to recruited members that infiltration had been detected? That the visible operation needed to be protected by making it seem like it was fracturing? That going dark in 2016 wasn't retreat, but strategy? You can't surveil what you can't find. You can't co-opt what has already moved beyond your reach. Marcus Wanners, the Copenhagen researcher who found the cryptographic fingerprint, gave one final interview before going quiet on this subject. A podcast, small audience, recorded in 2021. Near the end of the interview, the host asked him a simple question. Do you think Cicada 3301 is still active? Wanners was quiet for a long moment, and then he said something that has stayed with every researcher who heard it. He said, I think the more important question is whether active is even the right concept anymore. You activate a tool. You don't activate an architecture. An architecture just exists. It doesn't need to be turned on. It's either built or it isn't. The host pressed him. And do you think it's built? Another long pause. I think, Wanners said carefully, that the people who created Cicada 3301 were not the kind of people who started things they didn't finish. And that was the last public statement he ever made on the subject. So what does that leave us? With a puzzle that the world's greatest cryptographers haven't fully solved. With a whistleblower who vanished. With a journalist who knows something she won't say. With a researcher who found a fingerprint connecting a 4chan puzzle to a classified NSA program, and then stopped talking. With an FBI classification that puts an anonymous internet mystery in the same category as nation-state cyber threats. And with a question that has no clean answer. Not because no one has looked hard enough, but because the people who built this were, by every measure we have, smarter than the people looking. There is one final detail, one last piece that I've held back, because it deserves to land at the end. In 2022, a graduate student at the University of Edinburgh, while writing her dissertation on steganography in digital art, was analyzing a completely unrelated dataset of images posted to obscure internet forums between 2017 and 2021. Images that had nothing to do with Cicada 3301. Images from forums that had no connection to the original puzzle community. And she found something hidden inside 17 of them. Fragments. Encoded in the same layered steganographic format used in the original Cicada 3301 puzzles. Authenticated, she checked obsessively multiple times with the same PGP key that had gone silent in 2016. The same key. Active. Years after the official silence. She reported her findings to her dissertation advisor. Her advisor told her to remove that section from her dissertation. She asked why. Her advisor said, because you don't want to be the person who found this. She removed it. She told one person, a friend, a researcher, someone who eventually passed the information to the small community still working on this case. And those fragments she found, they haven't been decoded yet. They're still out there, waiting, like they've always been waiting. This is StoryLabs. We follow the threads that others leave behind. We walk into the rooms that others walk past. We ask the questions that make people say, "You really don't want to know the answer to that." And sometimes we don't find answers. Sometimes we find something more valuable. We find the shape of the silence, the outline of what isn't being said, the ghost of something vast moving quietly through the spaces between the things we think we understand. Cicada 3301 may be the greatest unsolved mystery in the history of the internet. Or it may be something that was never meant to be solved, only meant to find the people capable of solving it. Either way, it found them. The question that should keep you up tonight isn't who built it. It's what those people are doing right now. Sleep well. And remember, if you ever find something hidden inside something ordinary, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Thank you for spending this hour with StoryLabs. If the story found you, maybe that means something.